How's it going, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Armchair Analysis here on the YouTube channel. I don't know why I said it like that. That's whatever. What an idiot. Anyways, welcome in. Hope you guys are having a good day so far. It is Thursday, April 16th, 2026. We've got kind of an interesting video because I really don't know how I wanted to go about this, and to be honest, I don't know if I'm really going to be happy with how I go about this, but we're going to try it out. We're going to see what I like and what I don't like, and we'll kind of adjust from there. Today, it's really just a what you may have missed from the 2026 non-playing season. We don't really talk about off seasons over here because there isn't one. And yes, somebody's going to say, well, I mean, up until 3 days ago, you were on an off season. Yeah, go watch the channel update. We'll talk a little more about that later, or there specifically. But make sure you check out all the stuff we did. Yesterday, we did a little video essay type content. I thought it was really fun. Really enjoy kind of where you would go if you wanted to fix college football, what things you would go to change, and kind of where the focuses should be in terms of trying to put things back on the right path for college sports as a whole. I hope you all go tune into those. I hope you all stick around for this video. Today we're going to kind of, again, talk about everything you may have missed, whether it's coaching changes. We're only going to hit the big things, the ones that really feel like they have, some weight behind them. Some that I just think are kind of underrated moves, especially when it comes to the transfer portal. I'm not going to talk about the big things. I'm not going to talk about the biggest names because we all already know that. I'm going to talk about some of the ones that you might have missed. Again, that's kind of the point of the video. So again, make sure you stick around. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment down below. Let me know what you think. We got the sign put up, finally. It doesn't look great on the camera. I got to figure out some camera settings, see if I can kind of sort some things out. But I think it's really cool. Excited to have that up behind us. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into today's subjects. And we'll start with the coaching changes. And I'm going to be honest, I think the biggest one, we all know about Lane Kiffin to LSU, but I think the biggest one, the most impactful to a program, is Kyle Whittingham going to Michigan. And I know what you're going to say. We see that helmet up there. We know what you're doing. Yeah, you're probably right. No, I'm just kidding. In all reality, though, this is the biggest move of the offseason. This was a program-saving move. I mean, let's call it what it is. This Michigan program was on a downhill slide, really, with Jerome Moore. And unfortunately, the situations that happened, what can you do? what can you do about them? I mean, it feels like this program has been plagued with controversy ever since the COVID season, really, with the Burger Gate, if you want to call it that. Getting a fresh start at this Michigan program really feels like the right and the only way to go. And we're going to see our first look at this new program on Saturday when they have their spring game. I believe it's televised on Big Ten Network at 3 p.m. I certainly have it set to record already, as I will be out throughout the course of Saturday. Actually, at Wake spring practice, and then subsequently their game against NC State on Saturday afternoon. But this is going to be, again, I think probably the most consequential, whether it's good or bad consequence, that's probably to be determined. But I think it's the most consequential hiring of the entire cycle. I mean, this is a big deal for Michigan. This is a huge deal for Kyle Whittingham, taking that step outside of the state of Utah and really taking this opportunity to be the guy at a blue blood program. This is going to go one of two ways. It's either going to fail or it's going to be successful. I think that the work ethic, I think that the blue collar mentality of this program, and the way that Kyle Whittingham seems to be going about it, already updating strength and conditioning stuff, making it a more modern program, and really putting this team back on track to be one of the strongest in the Big Ten and strongest in the country, I think plays really well into future endeavors. Also, the fact that they're really making Bryce Underwood work throughout the course of spring practice has been a really good sign as well. All that stuff can be talked about later. I'm going to do a little spring game recap and preview. Tomorrow, actually, we'll kind of look into what we have seen so far, what the biggest storylines are, and then what's to come this weekend. But the fact that they're throwing a lot at Bryce Underwood, the fact that they're liking what they're seeing in the running back room, which they should. It's a great running back room, even if Micah Capana is now injured. This is still going to be a really good team, and I think there's a lot to really like about where Michigan is right now, and I think that's because, again, this move really feels like it's only destined to be successful. All that's got to be determined, though, on the field in the fall. We talk about Lane Kiffin at LSU. Are we really surprised? I mean, we knew he was leaving. When this show was still there, the heavy favorite was Florida. He ends up at LSU. Obviously, the bag's thrown a little bit better in Louisiana, and we know that. But I really think that this LSU team and really that Lane Kiffin leading this LSU program is the way to go. I think they're going to be really successful. It seems like the transfer portal's worked out in their favor tremendously. Getting Sam Levitt, of course, we've talked about that, or we will eventually talk more about that. But we've also got, Eugene Wilson. We'll talk a little more about him later, leaving Florida to go to LSU and join this program. I think he'll be a big part of the offense. Lane Kiffin, LSU, we know what to expect. We've seen him do it time in, time out, from FAU to Ole Miss and now to LSU. I really don't think that the trajectory of his programs and his abilities are going to change much. Matt Campbell going to Penn State was a not really a surprise. To me, I'm like, man, where was this 3 or 4 years ago? I mean, this is 4 years in the making that Matt Campbell should have been long gone somewhere else into a different program. And here we are, sitting about Matt Campbell going to Penn State, replacing James Franklin. He's bringing a lot of guys over from Iowa State. We're going to see how that turns out. I think there's certainly a lot to be concerned about, I think, for this Penn State program still. But I don't think it's as much as people might say, at least those who are down on Penn State. But I also don't think there's as much to be happy about as those who are high on Matt Campbell and high on this Penn State program. I don't know that this really changes much in the Penn State eyes. I mean, do you really think Matt Campbell's going to do better than James Franklin? Hard to say. He may have a better record in top 10 matchups. He may have, a better playoff record. That could happen. But beyond that, how much better do we really think Matt Campbell's going to be versus what James Franklin was? I don't rightly know. I think that they're kind of level playing field going forward. That's one that is probably not going to be a popular take, but it's honest. At least we can say that. John Summerall to Florida is my favorite move of the offseason. It's not a homer take, at least. John Summerall to Florida is huge. I mean, this is a big deal for Florida. I think that this program takes a step in the right direction from the very beginning. There's some question marks around this program. Of course, Buster Faulkner has done a great job so far trying to implement the offense, but the quarterback battle is going to be a big deal. I think everybody's kind of expected it to be Aaron Philo. Obviously, the battle is wide open after spring game on Saturday. Again, we got more to talk about on that tomorrow. I don't want to take too much away from it, but Tramel Jones was fantastic. And Aaron Philo certainly has a battle on his hands. Buster Faulkner, of course, the former OC at Georgia Tech, joining John Summerall down here in Florida. And Aaron Philo, a previous member of that offense at Georgia Tech, came with Buster Faulkner. You think there's a reason for that. But this team has a lot to like. I really enjoy what they've done in the transfer portal as well. This is a team that when we get to preview season, I've got some really interesting hopes for going forward. Alex Galesh to Auburn, probably one of my least favorite moves. And it's not a dig at Alex Galesh. I just don't really know how this is going to translate. I think that they've done a good job so far in the portal, at least what they could bring in. What they lost in the portal was probably what they were already going to lose in the portal. I don't really think that things changed too much for them there. This is just a team that I think has kind of a general place right now. And until somebody can really come in and break the mold, it's going to be kind of the same song and dance for the next few years. Pete Golding taking over at Ole Miss. Things don't really change there, obviously. Pete Golding, was the defensive coordinator last year, took over for the playoffs, was hired almost immediately after Lane Kiffin left. Didn't really retain as much of the staff as I think he would have liked. Obviously, the majority loyal to Lane Kiffin. This is just kind of a determining factor of is he going to be a good head coach? He looked okay in the playoffs. Felt like there were some solid decision-making efforts there. Now it's a chance to see it through a full 12. Will he get through all 12 games being, again, a consistent decision maker, being a consistent leader in that locker room? We could all signs point to yes. He's been great so far as a defensive coordinator. Again, he's done awesome in the Kiffin and even going back beyond the Kiffin Ole Miss tenure. We'll just kind of see where this lands. Again, Pete Golding, I think it's a really solid move. I don't really feel like Ole Miss goes too far. Really just depends on how much they can win in the portal still going forward. Ryan Silverfield to Arkansas. I like Ryan Silverfield a lot. I don't like this move a lot. I think there's a lot to unpack for Arkansas still. They've got a lot of room still to kind of try to grow and move on and try to be a contender again. I feel like this is a team that, once every 10 years starts getting into a contender status, and then all of a sudden they kind of just fall back off after that class leaves. You feel like mid 2010s, or sorry, mid 2000s, from like the Darren McFadden, Peyton Hillis era. You felt like that was a really good group for them. You felt like the early 2010s they did well with Ryan Mallett, and then kind of fell off. And then about the mid 2010s, about 2016, you felt like there was one really good year in there with Tyler Allen. Then it fell off again. We haven't really seen this Arkansas team be that good since. Can Silverfield do it? I don't know. I feel like it just depends on how much they're going to put NIL status into this thing. I mean, this is a program that certainly has focus towards basketball with John Calipari being the new head coach there. Dave Van Horn doing a great job in baseball. Can Arkansas kind of find that success in football? We'll see. James Franklin of Virginia Tech, I feel like this is kind of a foolproof, no way this isn't a good move. I think James Franklin's probably going to retire at Virginia Tech. His 8 to 10 win ceiling is what Virginia Tech's been yearning for since Frank Beamer left. I mean, this is a team that would love to have the seasons that Penn State was calling failures. Well, prior to last year, anyways. Virginia Tech, James Franklin, I think a perfect match for each other. I think this is going to be a very successwill move. Will Stein to Kentucky. I really like it, honestly, and I really like what they've done in the transfer portal as well. This Kentucky program, I think, takes a very big step forward under Will Stein. I think a modern offense, a good defense, I think they're going to continue to put that on the field in Lexington. This is one of the more underrated P4 hires in the cycle. Bob Chesney to UCLA. I don't really know how I feel here. I don't know about how I feel about Chesney on the West Coast. I don't know how I feel about Chesney anywhere other than James Madison, to be honest. He's succeeded everywhere he's been, but I just don't know what the success rate can be at UCLA. So it's going to be questionable, to say the least. Tosh Lupoy and Tavita Pritchard. We'll throw them both in the same group because it's the Cal-Stanford rivalry. Lupoy for Cal, Pritchard for Stanford. First-time head coaches, both alums. We'll see. I don't know how else to say it. I think we'll see. Tavita Pritchard handpicked by Andrew Luck once again. We'll see if that turns out to be anything. These two programs are just trying to kind of get out of their meddling mediocrity they've sat in, especially now that they're in the ACC. Feels like things are even tougher with all the travel, all the extra stuff thrown in here. We'll just see where they end up. Pat Fitzgerald at Michigan State. I almost said it completely wrong. Pat Fitzgerald to Michigan State is a move that I don't really have a good feel for. I feel like this could be successful. I feel like this could just look like the rest of the Michigan State tenure in 2020 or the decade 2020s. It doesn't really feel like this is going to be a overly successful route for Michigan State. I'm not saying it's going to be negative. I'm not saying they're not going to have their moments. I don't really know, and I don't know what the leash is on Pat Fitzgerald. I don't know if they're going to give him his time or if they're going to just kind of make another quick move. If they make another quick move, it feels like this Michigan State program is going to start continuing to just decline because there's no consistency anywhere. I mean, they lost Aiden Childs, funny enough, to Northwestern, which felt like the future of the program at quarterback. I don't really know what to say about this Michigan State team. So, I guess we could save that for preview season. Maybe that's a good call. And before we get into the transfer portal, I do want to tell you that preview season starts on June 1st. If you're not sure what preview season is here on Armchair Analysis, it's very simple. I preview 68 teams in 68 days. It starts on June 1st. It goes all the way through mid-August. And we give you an in-depth update, an in-depth preview on every single team, including a schedule prediction, including a new feature this year is going to be a ceiling, kind of a ceiling and a floor record versus what I'm predicting them to have. We're going to also have a fun little bit here, a little bit of a revamp, a little more consistent with it, just in terms of how we go about these previews, what we talk about, how we get through the stats, how we get through transfer portal updates and all that stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm very excited. We're still putting it all together, and by we, I mean me. I'm still putting it all together. But it's going to be really fun, and I'm very excited to eventually roll that out again starting on June 1st, preview season here on Armchair Analysis. Make sure you don't miss a single one of those episodes. It's the most in-depth preview, team by team, that you will find on YouTube. So I hope that you all will tune in and make sure to, again, like and subscribe. Make sure you check out for your favorite team when it comes down to time. Because, again, while it is the most in-depth, nobody knows your team better than you do. and at least I don't know your team better than you do. I'm always open to those comments down below. This is a community here at Armchair Analysis. It's not me talking at you or to you. It's me talking with you, understanding kind of where the vibes are around college football. And I hope you all join me in this journey as we restart here at Armchair Analysis. So thank y'all so much for tuning in, subscribing, liking, all that stuff. Let's carry on. It's time for the transfer portal conversation. And these are just some of the moves that I think are either the biggest moves of the offseason, the ones that make the biggest sense or could make the biggest difference for a team this year. And some of these are going to seem obvious. Some of these are not. Some of these are going to seem like, oh, man, I'm kind of interested to see why he thinks that. But I've got relatively 3 to 5 on every position. The only position I didn't include was tight end. I didn't really feel like there were a bunch of moves that I felt were I didn't really feel like tight end had a whole lot of impact moves. A lot of the tight ends the big name tight ends stayed put. So I didn't feel like there was a whole lot to give to that. So starting at the quarterback position, we're going to start with the big one, Sam Leavitt going to LSU. The real, I guess, controversy there was where he was going to land, and it obviously ends up being LSU, joining Lane Kiffin. Feels like he's kind of that quarterback that Lane Kiffin wants, could probably play a similar game to Jackson Dart, maybe less physical. But it feels like Sam Leavitt could really fit into this Kiffin offense pretty well. So I'm excited to see where that turns out, what that turns into, and how that goes forward down there in Baton Rouge. When you look at Texas Tech, it's Brennan Sorsby coming in at quarterback this year, and I'm very excited for Brennan Sorsby. I think this is the opportunity for him to lead a playoff caliber offense. And when we talk about these things together, I think Brennan Sorsby is a playoff caliber quarterback. I think he could be a championship caliber quarterback even. Very excited to see where this lands. This Joey McGuire program and the oil money, if you want to say, that's coming in there in Lubbock, they're doing a great job. They're putting together really good football teams. They're putting together a competitive program, and they just keep getting better. I feel like this year is another one where Texas Tech really feels like the far and away favorite for the Big 12. Darian Mensah to Miami. It feels like this just kind of was the move to keep Miami going, right? Darian Mensah was so good for Duke last year. Has been so good at Tulane a couple of years ago. Joining this Miami program, it's going to be a little bit of a different look than what Carson Beck was last year, but I think this is a more dynamic and even probably a more dangerous look than Carson Beck could have brought. Mensah has the ability to hit the deep ball, has the ability to run, make plays with his legs, extend plays with his legs that really Carson Beck I don't think had. And you add that on to what they've also brought in throughout the rest of the transfer portal. Feels like Miami's money is here to stay, and with that being the case, it feels like they're going to be a perennial championship contender. Dylan Raiola to Oregon was a head scratcher. I think everybody called that a head scratcher. Why would you go somewhere where they have already got a proven starting quarterback to sit? Dante Moore doesn't seem like he's giving up that starting quarterback job, unless I'm missing a piece of information here. It doesn't seem like he's giving that job up. Which means that Dylan Raiola went to Oregon to sit for a year and then be the starting quarterback next year. I don't know why he would do that. It didn't make sense to me then. It doesn't make sense to me much now. Maybe we'll figure something else out. Again, that's what preview season is for. Get a better feel for some of these teams than we had before. But this one this really didn't hit me very, very well. Josh Hoover to Indiana feels like a really good fit. We've already seen kind of the back and forth. Sonny Dykes talking about the turnover problems. Kurt Signetti talking about other problems around that. It was a fun back and forth, but I really do believe that Josh Hoover is going to take that step forward. Biggest concern has always been turnovers with Josh Hoover, and if he can go into this offense and really put things together, figure out how to read the defenses a little better, figure out how to make better, smarter decisions, Indiana becomes a back-to-back championship threat once again. The one thing here is that we could see those games from Josh Hoover that puts Indiana out of the college football playoff conversation. And if that's the case, then things really turn to a different route here in that conversation. It's going to be interesting to watch. I don't really know where it lands. But what I do know is I expect Hoover to be much improved at Indiana. I also expect Ethan Grunkemeyer to have a really big impact on this Virginia Tech offense. I think obviously him going with James Franklin was that vote of confidence. Hey, we want you in our program. Come with us. Obviously, he's going to be the starter this year, or I don't see how he's not. And if that's the case, we just let that ride. I just felt like that's kind of, again, the key for the future here for James Franklin. Get it off to a great start. You got a good quarterback to get it going. Moving to the running back position, the big one was Hollywood Smothers going to Texas, which kind of opened up a mass exodus at Texas at the running back position. Trey Wisner goes to Florida State, which is that's a great move. I really like that for Florida State. I really like C.J. Baxter to Kentucky. We talk about what Kentucky did with Will Stein early on in this tenure, bringing in Kenny Minchie at quarterback. C.J. Baxter is going to be a really big deal, and a long list of Kentucky running backs who have been pretty solid over the last handful of years. Feels like C.J. Baxter jumps in and can probably fill that role very well. Abu Sama goes to Wisconsin, which was kind of a surprise to me. Wisconsin had a similar mass exodus through the portal with all the question marks. The AD now leaving. Feels like Luke Fickell's seat is hotter than it's ever been. And Abu Sama could be the key to keeping that safe. But we got to get 2024 Abu Sama, not 2025 Abu Sama. Mekhi Hughes to Houston feels so underrated. He didn't play at Oregon last year. He was barely even a part of the team, essentially. But Mekhi Hughes transferred out of Oregon after leaving Tulane. He was a big part of that Tulane win against USC in the Cotton Bowl, if I'm remembering right, during the New Year's Six a couple years ago. Mekhi Hughes now back to Houston. When I say back to Houston, back to Willie Fritz and going to Houston. He's going to fit into this offense very well. I love what Houston's got going this year. I think that this is the biggest contender to Texas Tech, and that's before I do any further previews, before I do any further research. I've said it from last year. I think it is now. They're the biggest contender to Texas Tech. Let's take a move to the wide receiver position. Cam Coleman went to Texas. I mean, it was going to be tough for him to stay at Auburn with all the change, again, everything that was going on around that program. So it feels like that was pretty much inevitable, but he's going to add a lot to Texas offense. Going to be a big target for Arch Manning in year 2 as a starter. J.J. Buchanan to Michigan just feels like it's a really big move because it adds a depth piece to this Michigan receiver room, with Andrew Marsh, of course, being wide receiver 1. I think Buchanan's going to be wide receiver 2 and or fit into the slot. This is going to be a really fun Michigan offense that can actually throw the ball and make it happen downfield, which I think is something that's been missing for really a few years now. Even the national championship team didn't have a great ability beyond Roman Wilson. This Michigan team feels like it has opportunities all throughout that receiver room to make plays downfield. I like J.J. Buchanan, again, just because it adds something to this offense. Eric Singleton to Florida. This is just, again, rejoining Buster Faulkner, being a part of this offense once again. I think that's a really big move. I think that's going to be a very big help, whether it's Aaron Philo or anybody else in that room, really. Eric Singleton, I think, is going to be a big part of that offense. Another one that I didn't add in here, but I should have, is Micah Mays at Florida. He looked really good in the spring practice. And obviously, it's just spring practice, but they love what they're seeing from him so far in Gainesville. The Wake transfer is going to be a serious part of that offense this year. Nick Marsh to Indiana was kind of the most highly sought-after Big Ten receiver that hit the portal, and that's kind of all I can say there. That obviously goes to Indiana, going to be a big target for Josh Hoover. Quincy Porter was another sought-after Big Ten transfer, leaving Ohio State to go to Notre Dame. That's going to be a good addition and a big target for C.J. Carr. I already talked about Eugene Wilson at LSU. I feel like that's just a really good fit for that offense. Some of my biggest offensive line moves are ones that just feel kind of underrated. Jordan Seaton was a huge recruit coming out of high school, went to Colorado, has just transferred to LSU. Melvin Siani leaves Wake Forest to go to Texas. I think he's going to be a very big piece to that offensive line this year. Was great for Wake Forest last year, one of the bright spots in that O-line. And then Jacarius Peak leaves NC State to go to South Carolina. Felt like he was going to go to a bigger contender, but he stays in the Carolinas and goes down to Columbia, and is going to join a really solid and I think much improved offense under Kendall Briles in year 3 of the Lenore Sellers experience. On defensive line, I think the big one that I'm going to talk about here is Chaz Coleman at Tennessee, and it's not because of the move that was made or because it was such a sought-after recruit. But because of what's happened in the recent weeks, it feels like he's struggling to adjust, is what people are saying. And the rumor mill has certainly been flowing about Jazz Coleman and what's going to happen with him. Whether or not he's going to remain on the team, I don't know. I don't have any inside information. I hope he does, because I think he's a really solid player. I think he's a really good player, potentially a great player that could bring a lot to Jim Knowles in this defense. Unfortunately, sometimes these things do happen. I don't care how much money you make, homesick can still happen, and it feels like that's kind of the situation with Chaz Coleman. I just really uh, hope and pray that he's going to be able to kind of get through that and be able to be a big part of this Tennessee defense, because I think he has, again, a really good opportunity in front of him, not only with this Tennessee Vols defense, but to potentially play at the next level and be a very, very impactful player at the next level. It's just going to come down to to the mental side of it. And unfortunately, my alarm went off. But it's just going to come down to the mental side of it. And I think he'll be able to get over that. Damon Wilson goes down to Miami, leaves Missouri. He's obviously adding to what's going to be a really solid defensive line there. Francis Brewu leaves Pitt to go to Notre Dame. I think that's going to be another good interior D-line addition. I say another good, but just another one for Notre Dame. They've been really solid at kind of continuing to keep that defensive line strong. Quay Russaw to Ohio State, but there's too many transfers to Ohio State that I feel like I wouldn't really be able to do it justice. This is they're looking really good, especially this defense, by the way. Matt Patricia, year 2, looks fantastic. Cade Uluwabe left Cal to go to BYU. This was a guy that we kind of felt like had some ties to go elsewhere, but ultimately ends at BYU. And unfortunately, his defensive coordinator they committed to left, and Jay Hill. But I think that they're going to be just fine. I think Uluwabe will be a very good addition to that Cougars defense. Rasheem Biles, one of the best linebackers in the country last year at Pitt, left Pitt to go to Texas. That's going to be a huge addition for them. Christian Allegro, forgive me, I'll get that pronunciation right for the preview. Goes to Ohio State, was the best player on Wisconsin's defense last year, bar none, whatever. Hands down, bar none combined gives you that, I guess. But he was one of the best players for this Wisconsin defense last year. He's going to be a really good player for this Ohio State defense this year. Going to lead that linebacker room. Austin Romine to Texas Tech, left Kansas State, was an All-American caliber player in 2024, played well last year. Not quite to the same standard, but was really good. I think he's going to be really good again at Texas Tech. Ricky Gibson goes to Texas A&M. Jontez Williams to USC. Jaden Sanders leaves Michigan to go to Notre Dame. This was kind of interesting to me because I think he's a good fit for Notre Dame. But I feel like this is a huge loss for Michigan. Coach Whittingham said early on in this spring cycle that lack of depth in the secondary has been a bit of a problem for them. So it feels like this would have been a good move to keep at Michigan, but unfortunately, with everything going on, they just couldn't. Kayan Lee goes to Tennessee. Very curious about how he's going to fit in and really all the additions to this Tennessee secondary and how they're going to work. Jim Knowles, year 1, installs are slow for his teams. And this Tennessee secondary has already been pedestrian in the last few years. How is that going to continue forward? Now, closing this out, let's talk a little bit about safeties real quick. We already talked about the cornerback position. Safeties, Coy Parrott going to Oregon. We already knew he was kind of a first-round talent. We felt like there was probably a move. It goes, once again, where Oregon steals a Big Ten safety. Last year stealing Dylan Thieneman. This year taking Coy Parrott, and I think this is going to be, again, another good addition. This is just kind of the obvious, right? We're stating the obvious here. This is probably similar result, I think, to what Thieneman brought last year. You look at Boo Carter to Colorado. The drama that surrounded him at Tennessee certainly precedes what could happen at Colorado. At least I think it does early on. I think this guy's got a great talent. I think this guy's got a great opportunity here to join this Colorado team, be a big part of this defense. And what they hope is a help to bring them back to a bit of a relevance in the national landscape. Of course, last year was not the year they wanted it to be. They rotated through 3 quarterbacks all year long. Never felt comfortable. You feel like this defense getting better is going to be a step forward. You feel like the offense definitely will take a step forward with Julian Lewis being the full-time starter this year. Feels like this Colorado team gets a little better. Boo Carter could be a big addition to that. Terry Moore left Duke, and Man, that hurt a lot of Duke fans. I know it did. But what he's going to bring to Ohio State is going to be absolutely incredible. He could be one of the best safeties in college football, if not maybe even the best. I think he's up there. He was one of my top 5 safeties last year in the sport going into the season. He's going to be great once again, and I think that the ability again to play under Matt Patricia, kind of like I talked about with Christian Allegro, continues to move things forward. This is going to be a really good defense for Ohio State, another top 5 defense potentially in the 2026 season. Fahim Delane leaves Ohio State to go down to LSU. I think that's going to be probably a good fresh start for him. He never really saw a bunch of playing time at OSU anyways. Feels like he's going to join this LSU program and be a key contributor on defense from the very beginning. Brandon Hillman left Michigan to go to Virginia, and we talk again about Michigan's secondary issues, but this is a huge ad for Virginia. And by the way, Virginia has done a great job. They got 3 quarterbacks that they could go through at any point this season. 3 starting caliber quarterbacks they could go through at any point this season. And then you go through what else they've done in the portal, and it feels like they just continue to add. Tony Elliott's done a great job of building the NIL trust there and really putting forth the effort to create not only a good football program, but join the likes of their basketball and baseball programs as national contenders year in and year out. Now, they may not be national championship contenders in football, but they're certainly ACC contenders. I think this is another team that could get right back to Charlotte once again this year, and maybe even get themselves a ACC championship if things go their way. Obviously, that's a long way away, and that's too much of a prediction to make right now. All in all, there's been a lot of big moves, and we're going to talk about more of them as time goes on. Of course, we're going to see the preview season start. Again, June 1st, preview season starts. That's where we're going to talk about everything, but we're going to talk a little more about these guys going forward as well. The 2 weeks leading up to Monday through Friday, the 2 weeks leading up to preview season, you are going to see my lists for top 10 players, coaches, and even team groups, position groups, going through into preview season as we kind of lead into it. We're going to start with, of course, our top 10 coaches. That'll probably be a Friday if I were to guess, based on position groups. What do we got here? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 offensive groups and 1, 2, 3, 4 defensive groups plus coaches. I think that's a really, really solid place to land. So we'll have our 5 offensive groups coming up again 2 weeks before June 1st as we lead into it. Will be May 18th. And funny enough, June 1st is a Monday, so that's a great time to start everything off. But May 18th, we'll start our top 10 list. It'll go 18th through 22nd. That week will be all top 10 offense. 25th through 29th will be all top 10 defense plus our top 10 coaches in 2026. So make sure you check that out. Make sure you stick around. I think there's a lot to uncover over the time going. Again, we've got plenty more topics, subjects to get to. As a matter of fact, it's funny to say that because we're really only 2, 3, 4.5 weeks away from that happening. I mean, we're right at, what are we? We're 2 days short of a month removed from all that stuff starting. But we've got plenty more to talk about. Tomorrow we're going to be back. We're going to talk about everything we've seen so far from spring games, all the conversations coming out of spring games or practices, if you'll call them that. So far, including Alabama, Tennessee, being the big ones. Florida had their spring game. We'll talk a little more about that. The battle that's brewing between Tramel Jones and Aaron Philo. We'll talk more about the games that are upcoming as well. The Michigan spring game, of course, going to have a lot of eyes on it, I think, around the country, just based on seeing Kyle Whittingham and what he's done so far. I think I'm going to have my eyes, of course, being there at the Wake Forest spring game. I'll give you guys everything I can from that and what we take away from what we'll see. It'll be the first look at Gio Lopez in the black and gold, so I think that's going to be exciting. And, yeah, it's just going to carry on. This is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to continue to kind of put together content pieces going forward. Very excited for it. Hope you guys will stick around again. And with all that said, thank y'all for tuning in. This is a little longer video. Went a little longer than I thought, but I still think we put together a good one. Let me know who I may have missed out on, who are some underrated names that I didn't get to in this video. Give me something to research as we lead towards, again, preview season. So thank y'all so much. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your Thursday. See you guys tomorrow with another episode here of Armchair Analysis.